On today's episode of the Broadway Shuffle, Texas Tech is given a hard reality check in the loss at home to Colorado. Big 12 referees have a horrible weekend, and we look forward to Texas Tech basketball season. That and much more next on the Broadway Shuffle. Okay, we are live on a Monday morning. Texas Tech coming off a loss at home to Colorado, 41-27. Lots to get into about this game. We could start in a lot of different areas. Conrad, Zyler, Clayton are here. And gentlemen, I just want to get right into it. This loss, very deflating for your program, coming off of Big Noon, coming off the high of beating Iowa State on the road. You had a lot to look forward to, a lot to play for. Turned out more than you thought so as well. After Iowa State loses to Kansas on the road, you would have been in a theoretical second place tie in the Big 12 had you won this game. So lots to get into. But before we start that, I wanted to say thank you to our subscribers on YouTube. Our last episode, our preview episode, got into the Colorado fan page chain somehow. And we had our highest viewed episode, our highest commented episode as well. And so if you are a Red Raider fan, please go back into that episode and give us some defense a little bit. We and our team and our fan base got pretty well roasted. The humility that the Colorado football team showed was, if you know what I'm talking about, is evident as well in our comment section. But we nonetheless thank you because the engagement was great, and we look forward to that more as for episodes to come. And you can find us on YouTube at the Broadway Shuffle, a Texas Tech sports podcast. Make sure to like this episode and subscribe to the channel. So with that, Zyler, Clayton, Conrad, looking forward to this episode. Conrad, I want to go to you first, man. Tough loss, lots to go to. We were all at the game, and you had the officials at the top of your mind. Go into that a little bit for me and your initial reaction off the loss.
Yeah, we did not play well at all. Your offensive line was abysmal. You had some questionable coaching calls. But I think the highlight for me was how horrifically officiated this game was. I'm never one of those people that wants to blame the officials for the loss of a game, and that's not necessarily what I'm doing here. I just can't remember a Texas Tech game that's had more of an impact by the officials than this one. The missed calls, the incorrect calls, the starting off with Shedeur, the roughing the passer, if you want to call it, on Shedeur. It was just, and then the missed face mask and the picked up flag on the targeting on Barron, the holds that were called, the holds that were not called. It was just abysmally officiated. I that was my biggest takeaway, and I think that the rest of Red Raider Nation that was there on Saturday night and even around the world felt that. There was one guy on Twitter, Mike Sanford at Coach Sanford 2. He tweeted that the officiating in this CU versus Texas Tech game is officially the worst officiated game I had ever seen. And then he also says these refs are embarrassing to the game of football. Another text I got, which I think we all would find interesting, was from a good buddy of mine. His name is Luke Bullard. He did go to Texas A&M. We'll forgive him for that because of what he said to me in a text. He said, Colorado is being saved by the refs, I'm paraphrasing, because the Big 12 wants to keep their darling pure so they can get into the college football playoff and get good ratings. And so I thought that was interesting coming from an Aggie, communicating how bad the officiating was on Saturday night. So was really, I mean, if people all over Twitter and even Dean Blandino on the Fox telecast was saying how poorly officiated the game was. And so that for me was the highlight. Again, I'm not saying if all those things, if you have the correct calls, you for sure win the game. But I do think if you have the correct calls and that the refs aren't protecting their baby in terms of Colorado, because I'm personally just sick of Colorado, but we'll talk about that at a different point in the episode. I think the game may end differently. You weren't great. You didn't deserve to win, but I thought the officiating is a major storyline that Joey thought was a big deal, and that I bet you he's going to get fined for as well. So that was big for me coming off Saturday afternoon, Saturday night in the Jones.
Yeah, Zyler, I'll go to you. Obviously, officiating had an impact on this game. The roughing the passer on you was probably the worst call of the night. I think that was a clear, blatant, You hit them right in the waist. I mean, that they end up scoring a touchdown on that drive. Was officiating to you a major reason for this loss, or are you more looking at what are other reactions, what other factors might have led to this defeat at home?
Yeah, I thought there were, if you want to talk officiating, the three big calls were the face mask on fourth and goal, the face mask on Barron. I didn't think it was targeting. I didn't think that should have been called. The face mask should have been
No.
called, and then the roughing the passer. Those were the three really crucial ones. But you had 80 something plays that you chose to play pretty poorly in as well. I don't think officiating is the reason you lost this game. Now, granted, you were not given any sort of favors by the officiating crew. And truly, I thought that the worst thing that they did was just kind of controlling the game. In the third quarter, it just got out of hand. You don't want students throwing stuff that are not tortillas, and so you got to knock the tech student section for that. You don't ever want to be doing that. But then afterwards, man, they just could not control the emotions. I thought Colorado got away with some, maybe late hits. I think you can make a case either way, but at that point in the game, you had a very riled up crowd, and then you had two very, 50-50 calls on late hits or unnecessary roughness, and it just sent the place into a frenzy. So I just thought very poorly managed, was not professionally done. They had some bad calls in Colorado's favor as well. I thought the taunting call by DJ McKinney in the end zone, just the finger wag, it was not a big deal. I don't know why they called that. There were several things that I just really disagreed with. That would be my general thought on the officiating.
Yeah, Clayton.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything they said. I don't think the officiating was the number one reason that you lost, but it definitely played a factor. And to Conrad's point, I've never seen a tech game or a tech officiated game be commented so much by people who have nothing to do with the game. I saw on Twitter from people who have nothing to do with tech or Colorado say this is the worst officiated game they've ever seen. I saw a Denver reporter write a column about how bad the officiating was, even though they're probably leaning towards more pro CU. And I feel like specifically on the face mask to Barron that they picked up the flag for targeting, I think they need to change the rule. I think it's stupid that they can review whether that flag was correct for one call, see that they missed another one, but then pick up the flag for the one. Similar to the NBA had that problem too, where they could, review if a foul was called, they see the ball goes out of bounds on one guy, but they can't overturn that. So I specifically on that, I feel like that's an easy fix. Just let them, on flags that are thrown, let them review whether there's another call that should be made. But yeah, like I said, I don't think that's the number one reason you lost, but it definitely made it difficult to win that game.
Yeah, to that point too, I don't like you can call it targeting, but not an unnecessary roughness, so then you can negate the whole penalty. That was a huge deal, Zyler, to your point on the officiating. The timing of that was awful because you call targeting, it's 4th and 9, you miss the face mask, we see the face mask, but you don't call unnecessary roughness. And I think I looked at Clayton at the game, was they didn't call unnecessary roughness, which means if they don't find targeting, it's their ball. And that's what happened. And the timing of when that came out, and then the fans, it just went bananas. And I hate that they can do that too. And if you see a foul, you should be able to call a foul. I think how the officials handled that too, when they first threw water bottles and everything, there was a 10-minute wait, and it's what are they doing? Are they waiting for communications from up top? Because then Casey Cowan over the speaker comes on and says the whole sections will be ejected if this continues, and then people start booing and throwing more stuff. And so it's just none of that sequence helped you. And then having to have Joey come on the mic, he was obviously told something, that vapes were being thrown on the field and all this stuff. It just did not help the flow of the game. I don't think it worked in your favor. In Colorado, they actually got rejuvenated by that, because their players start dancing on the sideline. Those guys, if we'll get into this, but they're sportsmen, just their sportsmanship is awful. I know Dion takes the high road a lot of times and is very polite. The players do not. I mean, Travis Hunter was taunting your fan base before the game. I think the students were completely riled up from the get-go. 2 hours before the game, they're in there messing with them. None of it set up well for you, and you got burned by it. So it's tough. I mean, we'll get in more to why you lost this game outside of officiating, but Conrad, I'll let you have the final thoughts on the officials.
Yeah, it was just from top to bottom, for me, my thought was, okay, from a tech perspective, these aren't false starts, right? False starts are 5-yard penalties. You replay the down. Yeah, they hurt you, but they're not a big deal. like in comparison to what we saw with the missed face mask, with the, the missed holdings, the holdings that were called, all of these different sequences that we could get into, but we're not going to bore our listeners with that. It's just, it's so frustrating to see officials have that big of an impact on the game. Big 12 refs are notorious for being absolutely incompetent over the years. I can remember so many times where they've missed calls over the years. The Texas and OU fans were extremely loud about when they were, kind of hosed by the Big 12 refs. So on Saturday night, I just felt like it was the worst officiated game I think I've ever seen from a Texas Tech perspective. And I know all the Colorado internet fans who actually didn't go to Colorado and really have no interest in Colorado except for, doing whatever Dion says, because they're just, they like his big smile and his cheesy comments are going to be in the comments on this. But, the reality of the situation is Colorado was protected a lot in that game, and they were given a lot of bad calls. I'm not saying it was intentional by these referees, but that's exactly how it came out, and I think that's what the public sees as well. Again, I'm not trying to say that the penalties are the reason you lost this game, but I definitely do think that penalties played a huge part in the momentum of the game and in the outcome to some degree. I think you could have played a lot better in other ways, but I definitely think that you get the right calls and you may be sitting here having a different conversation.
Yeah, and to the Colorado fans comment, I mean, even during the game, I was getting how are you guys feeling now? It was like they are, I'm sure, eagerly anticipating this episode. And they even said, I think one said, can't wait to see what excuses we come up with. And then we spend the first 12 minutes talking about the refs. So I already know this is not, it's not going to go over well for us. But
Colorado fans, we're 12 minutes in. You're probably still listening. You probably haven't turned it off yet. So let me just say this. Go ask your friends that have no bias in the conversation and go back and watch that game together. Sit on the couch like you probably do all day and watch that game back with people and watch the officiating and tell me that we're not right. Talk to the other people on Twitter as well, which I know you all love being on, and tell us that we're not right and how poorly the officiating was. So that's probably going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm just being honest with you guys. You were honest with us in the comments. I'm going to be honest with you right back.
Hey, any Colorado fan that can name the last QB and coach before Dion and Shedeur is welcome to comment on our videos.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also love it. Let's just stay on this for a second, because the comments that were coming into that episode, it was like they were expecting us to have watched film on every single Colorado game and know the exact rushing stats. I'm like, you realize we are a Texas Tech podcast. We are giving our listeners as Tech fans a little glimpse into what you can expect from Colorado. We are not here to appease you. So now that you're 13 minutes in, you can tune out or stay and actually, come root for a real fan base that actually knows their football team longer than a 2-year window, to Clayton's point. And we'd love to have you on the show. So, but no, continue to comment.
You're irrelevant.
You're right. Get out of here. Okay. Let's get to reasons we actually lost this from a football perspective. And Z, I'll go to you first, man. Offensive line. If you have a video, actually, if you're able to watch this, I'd love for you to pull this video up. It pretty much
give me 2
completely
seconds.
sums up why you probably lost this football game, at least one of the biggest ones in my mind. But offensive line, to me, was just horrendous. And I think if you're going to go anywhere with why you lost this game, it's there. So Z, if you've got it, pull it up. This is a video of a run play that you had. And if you're not watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can check this out on YouTube. Let's see. Here it is. Okay.
Yeah. So let me get
explain
into
what's going on here.
Yeah, so this is just a basic run play, and I don't want to call out a singular individual. This is just, unfortunately, the one all-22 shot that I have. Shout out to Justin over at Red Raider Sports for posting this. If you watch the left guard here, which is the guy right here, you're going to see why it was maybe so hard for us to run on first and second down. This was something that you were dealing with all day. It was a miracle that Taj got 140 yards in this game. Truly, it was a impressive performance. If he can just get to the line of scrimmage, he's almost guaranteed 4 or 5 yards, and he wasn't really able to do that. I thought if you had to lay the blame on anything, one, I think you were just not prepared for how good Colorado's defensive line was going to be. They murdered you on the edges. BJ Green and Samuel Okunlola, those guys ate your tackles up. I mean, they just had, the Barron fumble at the end, that's not even really on Barron. That's dude, you should be able to get a 3-step drop off, and not get hit. That's a very reasonable expectation. And then in the run plays, man, you could not get anything going. Just couldn't until the end of the game when they weren't really loading the box up as much. But even in the first half, they were running some light boxes out there. And to their credit, I mean, we talked about the linebackers. I still don't think they're that good. You can expose them in pass coverage, but man, they will fill run gaps. They can hit in the middle of the field. If you get them going laterally, they're not going to be nearly as good, but they absolutely ate you up on some of those run plays. And your line couldn't ID defensive tackle. It was just really frustrating. Guys were missing their assignments. They were terrible. They're my number one reason that you lost the game. I had, some overall things. So if you're familiar with EPA, or expected points added, your EPA, so what your offense generated on first and second down, was negative 27.76 expected points added. That is truly horrifyingly bad. It is impressive to be that bad. Yeah, I mean, you just couldn't do anything on first and second down. And that was one of the things that we talked about. Key to this game is, can you get ahead of the chains? We know Barron's limitations kind of on long passing downs, and I think we all saw that again. It shouldn't be any surprise to us at this point. When we're not able to run on first and second down effectively, your offense really struggles. They put in a performance that ranked in the 7th percentile for offensive performances on the season, not just for your team, but in FBS. Truly a ghastly performance. Just really, really left a lot to be desired, especially on the offensive line.
Clay?
Yeah, agreed. I think the offensive line, you couldn't get any push in the run game. You gave up 7 sacks. I think it was 10 tackles for loss, something like that. That was for sure my number one reason. But I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I think Barron didn't have even close to his best game, probably one of his worst games of the season. I didn't think Kitley was that bad overall. He didn't have much to work with, but I thought he had a few sequences, specifically the 3 and out where we did a run play, screen to the left that didn't work, screen to the right that didn't work, and then fake punt, which that's not on Kitley, but I thought that was horrific. And then at the end of the half, whenever you had the big return that potentially could have gotten a field goal, they were running 5-man box for all 3 of those plays. And granted, I mean, if Barron hits that out route, we probably still get a field goal there. But I thought we should have ran there, considering we had 2 timeouts.
Okay, I do want to mention, Clayton, something. People were really upset about running the ball on that box when you have timeout. I think we had 2 timeouts left, or we had timeouts.
We had 2.
That's absolute. We have hit that place several times throughout our career. When you have timeouts, it's totally fine to run the ball in like a 20-second drill. Oftentimes we hit those. You saw that against Iowa State on like 1st and 15. They don't expect you to run it, and Taj gets out there and he saves you, and he did it twice. That is a good call. There were a lot of people that were upset, like, why are we not passing it? That's something that we've hit several times. That call did not bother me one bit. Sorry. Anyway, back to you.
Same. Go ahead, Conrad.
It's just fascinating to me when we think about this offense, especially after Saturday, how people can get so angry at Zach Kitley. And again, situationally, he has definitely made some mistakes this season. None of us have been shy to share that opinion. But if you just watch the clip that Zyler showed, if you were there in person and you just didn't watch the ball, that's what most fans do. But if you just watched the offensive line, I'm sorry, but I don't know what any coach, no matter who you are, I don't care if it's Mike Leach. If you have and I know that's hard to hear for some Tech fans, but if Mike Leach had an offensive line as bad as the one you have this year, he may not be a Mike Leach. I mean, he may not have been that, because this offensive line is handicapping Zach Kitley. It's handicapping Barron. It's handicapping pretty much everybody except for Taj. He just finds a way. And if you have this offensive line, I don't know how can people like, well, you call so many screens. It's like, well, Zach Kitley obviously, and for good reason, doesn't trust people to be able to trust this line to be able to protect Barron. So what do you want him to do? I mean, now that goes back to recruiting, and we have to have that conversation separately. But
sure,
totally. it just boggles my mind how some of our fans just don't seemingly understand how football works. Like Barron could be Cam Ward back there, but if Cam Ward doesn't have half a second to 2 seconds, if you can't even block the guy that's right in front of you, I don't care. It's not going to work out for you. And so I just when you look at things from that perspective, considering the offensive line's worst performance of the year on Saturday night, it just changes some things in the way you look at this team and what you expect out of them moving forward, but also hopefully makes you realize that honestly you've probably overachieved from an offensive standpoint so far in the year after what we saw in high definition, nationwide on Saturday afternoon with that offensive line.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I don't want to spare Kitley completely. I've been a pretty
Sure.
ardent Kitley
Yeah.
defender, and I don't think that was your intent there. I think he had
No, it wasn't.
The thing that's frustrating is I feel like Kitley had a really good game plan coming in. He clearly identified where Colorado was not defending things well. It was those low crossers. They could not, those first two drives, man, you were cooking them up. You were cooking up the linebackers. You were cooking the corner. You were doing some really, really good stuff. They adjusted, and then you weren't able to run the ball, and you kept spamming it. And I don't want to blame Kitley because, you always get the thing like when we don't hand the ball to Taj, everybody's like, why are you not handing it to Taj? And then we give it to him 2 times in a drive, and he gets stopped for 1 yard and loses a yard. And everybody's like, why do you keep handing the ball to Taj? It's kind of like he can't win there. The adjustments came, I thought, a little bit too late, and it was a really bad offensive performance. You can't put it all on the line. I know we'll talk Barron here in a little bit, but I don't think Kitley's completely devoid of maybe some blame there. And Conrad, I'm not trying to say that you were sparing him, but I just did want to add that.
Yeah, just to go off what Zyler said real quick. No one was perfect. There's plenty of blame to go around. It's just, I know it's easy to blame the coaches immediately, and on Red Raider Sports and other message boards, that's exactly what happens every single time. And it's just frustrating because I don't think that it's always warranted. Sometimes it is, and there is blame to go around, but you can't just default to the easy blame of blame Kitley, blame DeRuiter, blame Joey. It's not that simple, and I just wish we'd think more before we speak sometimes about those things.
Yeah, this is the enigma of Texas Tech football. It's like you want to find a place to put blame, but yet you might not have the talent in certain areas, and it's Barron one day, it's Kitley one day, now it's McGuire, then it's the offensive line. And when it comes down to what I saw out of Kitley, there was really only one play where I'm like, that was so dumb. And it was the 4th and 1 at the goal line where you ran essentially like a RPO type handoff to Taj and you got blown up. And I'm like, you had 30 rush attempts for 35 yards midway through the third quarter. And you actually get down with 4 minutes left to the one, believe it or not, you could have made it a 1-score game. You ended up doing this anyways with a minute left, but you could have made it a 1-score game with 3 timeouts with 4 minutes left had you gotten a yard. Like, that is how you still somehow stayed in this game. And you just run the same run play that got blown up 30 times and expecting it to go get a yard. And I get getting to Taj, but there were just certain situations. With Kitley, it seems situational. Like, I think all of us here agree that it might be more player deficiency than scheme deficiency when it comes to Texas Tech offense. But we all got together at halftime there in the south end zone, and we're sitting and like, this is the same thing we've talked about. The offense disappears for 2 quarters at a time. You have not counting Abilene Christian, had a 4-quarter, and I mean, North Texas, the defense did a lot, but a 4-quarter offense of just like consistency. Even if you get a 3-and-out or 2, like, you find a way to score. I mean, you had 2 possessions where you're up 13-0. You had another possession or 2 where you're up 13-7. You had a chance to go and make this where, like, you would have been really, like, had probably a 75% chance of winning this football game in the second half. And Clayton looked over at me like 3 times, like, we score here, it'd be so clutch. We score here, it'd be so clutch. And the drive he mentioned, 2 screenplays, 3-and-out. 2nd and 1, like, Barron runs for 9 yards, gets sacked for 9 yards. 3rd and 10, you go 3 now. This offense takes 1 step forward, 2 steps back, it seems, every week. And I think that's what's frustrating is we don't really know, where do we put this? Like, how do we put this into perspective? But y'all are all correct. You have to be able to win in the trenches. And Colorado did that on both sides of the ball. Their offensive line isn't that great either. And I thought you did well. Like, the defense yes, you gave up some horrible screen plays, like on 2nd and 19, Hunter's touchdown. You can't give that up. And Webster had another one as well. But the defense did everything they had to do for you to win this game. The blame of, like, what you did, it falls on the offense. This loss falls on the offense, not necessarily scheme. Okay, and the officials. But and then particularly, you can also, as we transition, if you guys don't have any other thoughts, you can blame this on that fake punt as well, on a situational call that just gifted them points. That, to me, just did not. I'm not going to say the loss is on that, because odds are they probably go down and score still. But
Yeah.
You still. I don't think at that point in the game when you're only down 4 was it needed. It took the life out of this. There were so many plays that took the life out of the stadium, and Barron going interception, fumble, and back-to-back. I mean, just nothing seemed to go well. And yet, with a minute left, you were down 7. So I don't really know how to put that into perspective other than it's just a frustrating reality check for Texas Tech that we are still not ready for that stage.
Zyler, what were your thoughts on that fake punt?
Yeah, not my favorite. I get, they've scored, I think, back to back at that point, and then you go 3 and out and you're going to give the ball to them again. That feels, who knows? We don't know what's going on the sideline. Joey may be just completely like, man, I've got to do something. I don't want to let this game completely slip away. He looks like a genius if it gets converted. I don't know that I make that call, but I don't get paid millions of dollars. That one didn't bother me as much as some of the other stuff in the game. It feels like that didn't even happen just based on all the other stuff that occurred in the game. It feels like nobody's really upset about that call, but it wasn't my favorite.
My thing with that was we had already talked about that sequence when we ran a screen play to the left, screen to the right. Neither of them worked. Then you're going to run a fake punt on like our own 30. So even if you convert, what's going to change after that to actually get points on the board?
Yeah, it feels like, it's not like you're at the 50 and you're like, oh, dude, this is like such a, you can't kick a field goal. A punt feels terrible. Just interesting spot.
Yeah. When Barron ran to the sideline after that third down play, I was watching him, and a coach, again, I couldn't see who it was because we were on the other side of the field, stopped him. And he kind of stayed there and watched. And I thought immediately, are we going to try something? And sure enough, we did. And I just thought when the coach stopped him and he turned immediately around and looked at the field, I thought, you're not really going to do this, are you? From your own 31-yard line with what? Was it 8 minutes left in the third quarter? I mean, it was something. There was a good amount of time left in the third quarter. And I just thought, you gotta be kidding me. Like I'm not, if you want to go for it, I'm okay with it when it makes sense, obviously. But in the third quarter with that amount of time left and throwing, I couldn't tell who threw the ball, to be honest, because our numbers were so bad and I couldn't make them out on the field because of the jerseys. That's a whole different conversation. I couldn't tell it, but if you're gonna go for it in that situation, I'm not sure that's the most high percentage way of doing it, but it just wasn't needed at that point in the game, in my opinion.
Well, and this kind of goes back to the psychological conversation we had on if Joey's changed his analytical versus his aggressive mindset. It's like, dude, go for it when it makes sense and like stay aggressive, but also understand the game a little bit and where you're at. And, it's not like you were in desperate times midway through the third at that point. Even if Colorado goes down and scores, you're only down 11 points. I mean, you're a touchdown away from being right back in the game going into the fourth. I just didn't love the play call and the decision whatsoever. And, it just feels like this year that's just been, okay, do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I pull this trigger? And it just seems like it hasn't hit this year very much. I know on a couple of them, but the TCU game, we were all like, where's the aggressiveness? Some games were like, be conservative. That one, it's like, it just feels like this continuation of I'm not really trusting my decision making here. And it hasn't worked out like it had in the years past so far, I think. And so it was weird. It's tough, dude. But I will say this, you did not deserve to win this game. Officiating aside, things aside, Colorado is a better team than you, in my opinion. I personally, you turn the ball over 3 times. You have a failed conversion on a fake punt from the 30-yard line. You have opportunities to go score, and you didn't. You gave up big plays on 2nd and 19, 2nd and 16, 3rd and 13, where you could have got stops. I mean, this wasn't a TCU game in my mind. Like, I'm not as frustrated about this because, I'm watching that game. I'm like, this team's, you're just not as good as them. TCU, you should have won. This game, you did not deserve to win.
Yeah. And that's fair to a point, but you're not a better team top to bottom than Iowa State. I know they lost to Kansas last week, but they're a better football team than you. You just found a way to win on that Saturday. And I think that's the frustrating point for Tech fans is, sure, Colorado, I agree, they're a better team than you top to bottom overall. But you could have, at home with that environment, you could have found a way to win that game. And the fact that you played as poorly as you did, I think that's what has a lot of fans frustrated, even though, to your point, and I agree with you, Colorado is a better team. It's just maybe not on. You can still beat teams that are better than you. From a holistic resume standpoint.
I do want to shout out. I thought the environment for the game was really, really good. One of the best I've been to in a long time, and it made an impact at the beginning. And before we move on to some of the other pieces, I do want to tip my hat to DeRuiter. I thought you had a great game plan for what Colorado was trying to do. Shedeur never really got to hit a deep shot. I think the longest one that he got was that Will Shepherd play. I thought I'm not smart enough to diagnose what you were doing on the back end there, but you covered up a lot of that stuff really well. I thought the pressure packages worked some of the time, better than what you've gotten in the past, above 10% on your havoc rate, which is really good. You didn't let them run the ball, which they haven't done that well. You got blown up on some screenplays with, top-notch athletes. Wester and Hunter are obviously really, really good players, and you kind of tip your hat. They made great plays, but I thought the defense played well. They got put in some tough spots, but I thought DeRuiter, with the pieces that he's having to work with right now, with all the guys out that you have and how young you are, I was really impressed, especially given how poor you had looked and how poor you still continue to look. I just think I understand why you look a lot poorer on that side of the ball. So hat tip to DeRuiter. I thought he did a lot of really good stuff there.
Yeah, and that's kind of to my point, Z. Like, I felt like the defense did everything they could to help you win this game. They forced 3 and outs, they forced stops. I mean, first quarter, I'm like, what is happening? Like, how we're up 13-0? Like, Brady Quinn predicted Colorado to drop 50. Now they almost ended up doing that, but it wasn't because of the defense. I mean, you had turnovers and all that. It's the defensive touchdown. They scored as well too. So it's a great sign, I think, for Tech moving into what you have the 2 games left and then a bowl game and then next year. I think DeRuiter is not the problem when it comes to that. It's just that you don't have the dudes and he's doing all he can, but their coverage held up fairly well. I mean, you had Travis Hunter had a couple catches over the middle, but they really just burned you on missed tackles and screen play. It wasn't necessarily coverage issues. So proud of that side of the ball for sure. So
Yep.
Okay, well, let's move into one specific question. Conrad, if you want to pull up this tweet, someone tweeted at Mr. Cody Campbell, and this had got a lot of discussion from when he had called some fans some pink raiders a couple weeks ago. But I wanted to ask, how do you fix the offensive line to you guys? And somebody said, where is it?
I'm going to find it real quick.
Find it real quick, yeah. But anyways, I'll ask you guys why we're pulling this up. How do you fix the offensive line outside of Cody Campbell's paychecks?
Guys, we have somebody who sat behind a screen, tweeted something they shouldn't have tweeted, and later deleted it. How embarrassing is that?
Oh, look at that. It was deleted.
It sounds a lot like something a Colorado fan will do, but we'll just leave that there. So basically what Cody said is he tweeted, that was an awful officiating. No excuses made because we didn't play well. Totally agree with him. But an at Big 12 conference crew should be better than that. The individual said something to the effect of, we have a terrible offensive line. Maybe you should buy us one. And Cody, in his classic fashion, at Cody C64 on Twitter, go follow him if you haven't already, goes, I will. So subtle flex there. I really hope he follows through on that because that would be a welcomed addition to our football team. Cody, we can Venmo you maybe $30-$40, but we can try and help all that we can.
Yeah, we'd be happy to give our earnings from the Broadway Shuffle podcast all to the Matador Club. It's the least we could do for Texas Tech.
And all of our earnings to this point have gone to the Matador Club. It's actually crazy. We donate every single dollar we've made from this podcast to the Matador Club.
Yeah,
we are
doing
$0.
We're doing all we can here. But in a serious question, that is interesting. That guy deleted because he said for the Pink Raiders over here or something like that. But my question to you guys before we transition is, how do you fix the offensive line, and what reinforcements might we have that are redshirting, et cetera? Z.
Yeah, I actually think you have some guys. They're just at least a year away. But you saw, I don't know if y'all noticed that sub. We put in a true freshman at left tackle last 2 or 3 drives. Jacob Ponton, the kid out of the Austin area. He looks big enough. He's just not strong. You can see that bull rushes will be a problem for him, but he's long enough. He's going to be a great player for you. 4-star guy, had UT offers, very, very good player. The other kid that you've got is Ellis Davis, another true freshman. He's not going to play this year, not as ready. He came late. I think Nick Fatigue would be playing left guard for you if he wasn't hurt right now. He's a redshirt freshman. You've got Holton Hendricks. You've got Caden Carr. You've got Dylan Shaw. You've got some talent that's coming up in the pipeline. They are all just either 18 or 19 years old, not quite ready. I am very much for we get into the bye week and let's get some of these young guys especially at the left guard spot. Let's get them rolling. Porcher is giving it his all. It's just not.
Z, just tell us how you really feel, man.
He is struggling
right here.
He is struggling at this level, and I feel bad for him because I too would also struggle at this level trying to block some of these guys. So me and Porcher are the same in that regard. It's just it is not. He's hurting your run game in a lot of areas. Yeah, I would just let's let the young guys get some reps. Nobody's burning a red shirt at this point. I think Ponton's only played 2 games now, so he still has his red shirt intact. I would be very pro seeing some younger players rotate in at left guard and then maybe at left tackle. If Merriman's out, if Buchanan's out, then let's throw Ponton out there. Let's kind of see what he has. So I'd be all for that.
And Scurry will be back next year, correct?
I mean, ideally, Pop Isaacs also said he was coming back at the end of our tournament run, and we all see how that goes. Decisions will get made. Scurry may want to come back. We may not want him to come back. We may want him to come back. He may go somewhere else. We'll just have to see. I mean, he'll be coming off a big injury. Who knows if he'll even be ready for the start of the season. So you just got to kind of play that out and see what you need. We'll talk about this as the season ends, what your portal needs are. I do think you'll be in the market for a tackle. Hopefully just one, because they are expensive. Those aren't guys that you can get cheap. So it'll be interesting to see. You have help coming. It's just all young. They're all true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. So they're building it the right way with some of those guys. It's just going to take a little bit.
Zyler, do you think they'll be ready? Like, would you feel comfortable at this point next year with the guys you just mentioned starting for you on the offensive line?
Yeah, starting for you next year. So if all works out, in my ideal world, you still have Buchanan at tackle. You have Vinny Scurry at right guard. Sheridan Wilson's playing there. You have plenty of guys that can play left guard, and then you either have Ellis Davis or Jacob Ponton playing. That's in an ideal world. Those kids take a huge step, and you don't even need to portal anybody. I don't think that's what they're going to do. You'd love for, and Kitley's even said this, you don't like offensive linemen to see the field till their third year. It's just you got to put on weight, and you've got to get a lot stronger. So ideally, they maybe give those guys another year to get ready, and so you go get a tackle position. But if they can find guys that can upgrade certain positions, I'd be all for that. The thing with the portal is if you're bringing guys in, that means guys have to leave. And so do you want to sacrifice some of your youth for you maybe proven talent now that you have to replace again next year? That'll be the decisions that Blanchard and McGuire have to face as the season comes to an end.
Yeah, lots to talk about this offseason for sure. And Cody Campbell will gladly welcome your checks to some more talent if needed, but it'll be interesting to see nonetheless. So,
yeah,
okay. Well,
portal opens in like 5 weeks. We're going to be talking about this in basically a month.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. That early window is wild. And I mean, you've got to get prepared for a bowl game and try to figure out who's going to be on your roster come January.
That's so bad for college football.
So
but we can talk about that
we'll get in, and we'll get into that. Yeah. Big Noon, real quick before we kind of segue. You guys were all there. I slept in a little bit too late. Had an Airbnb problem there in Lubbock. So what was that like? I mean, it looked kind of crazy on TV. Did you guys have fun, or any in particular? I mean, Crabtree, Amendola there. Anything stand out to you guys of that, or was it kind of like what we thought, like a Walmart game day?
Yeah, I'll talk real briefly because I know we've got a lot of stuff to get to in the amount of time that we have. But I went with my buddy Hunter, and we made signs and did a bunch of stuff. There were a lot of really creative signs out there. It's fun. It's a huge production. There were definitely too many tortillas thrown. They will never do another show without a screen behind them. I can guarantee you that. That's a good lesson for Big Noon to learn. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of exposure. I mean, it was really cool getting to watch them talk about Ohio State for an hour and a half in Lubbock, Texas. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, cool for your university, cool for the exposure. You did a really good job. There were a ton of people there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, seeing Crabtree and Amendola and all of that stuff. We actually went to the letter winners tailgate a couple hours after that. And my brother ended up getting me in there. And so you're walking around with guys like, Crabtree and Amendola. I actually saw TJ Vasher. Wow. There were so many just like random old football players that were there, which was really cool. Like some of the guys I knew, some of them were a little bit too old, kind of before my time, but they're all way bigger than me. You could definitely tell that they were D1 athletes at one point. But yeah, it was really cool to see all the people back on campus. And I thought Tech did a really good job accommodating all of that. Conrad, I know you were there for a bit if you had any other thoughts.
Yeah, it was fun. I also took my 5.5-month-old daughter because you never know how many of those you're going to get. I've only had one, and I'm almost 28 years old. So you want to enjoy every single one. It was fun, man. It was cool. It was exciting. People were happy. The signs were hilarious. I mean, it was a good thing for the university. Good exposure. I know they just follow Colorado around like they're doing next week as well. But it was just good for your university, and it was fun to see. But definitely too many tortillas thrown. I wish I was a tortilla salesman in Lubbock on Saturday, because you could have made a killing. Whether it was the game or Big Noon, but it was a really fun experience. So, Clayton, do you have any thoughts on Big Noon?
Pretty much the same as y'all. My only complaint was you couldn't even really hear the show. So like whenever they're actually talking, you didn't really know what was going on. But I thought the guests were sick. Amendola, Crabtree, Joey, Dion. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I would do it again. And the tortilla toss at the beginning of the game, that was the most tortillas I've ever seen thrown at the stadium. That was insane. Yeah.
Do y'all think that's a good thing for your university? Like, or do you think it's like a meme now? Like, because Travis Hunter like picked one up and put it in his pants like during the game. It was hilarious. And like they were just, encouraging it. And I mean, Urban Meyer's going to deck the tortillas, which was kind of hilarious.
Urban hated it.
He hated it. He hated it, dude. He'll like
nobody cares about Urban Meyer anymore.
He'll take a sick day if they've ever got to come back to Lubbock next season, probably. But I just don't know. During the game it's great, but on the broadcast, I'm like, this is kind of getting dumb. Like they're not able to talk about anything because people are just tortillas in their face.
Did y'all see when OU came to town for that 2016 shootout with Pat and Baker, when somebody threw one and Baker picked it up and ate it, took a bite out of it, and looked right at the student section and ate like half the tortilla? It's like, Baker, man, you played here. You know how those things get in the stadium, man. Like you probably shouldn't be eating that, but he did win that game. So, but I thought that was, when Travis Hunter did that kind of reminded me of that moment as well.
Yeah. Twitter and national media got a kick out of it at least. So maybe it's a good thing for you. It's attention. I don't know. I just wanted to see. So, well, where we were right, where we were wrong predictions this week. Zyler picked Colorado to win by 1. Z gets the nod of being correct this week. Conrad, Clayton, and myself all picked Texas Tech, to which we got laughed at in our YouTube comments again by Colorado fans. So we will take the fault. We own it here. Z, congratulations on being the only one correct. I'm still waiting for the week, which we have not had yet, actually, not counting Abilene Christian, and I think UNT, where at least in the Big 12, where all 4 of us are correct. So maybe we'll get that against Oklahoma State, maybe West Virginia. You'll have to tune in to find out. We'll see. But let's get into our overreaction and reality check segment. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite, and I've got some hard ones for you this week for sure. So first question, and this can kind of tag into the Baron Morton conversation a little bit, but first question, overreaction or reality? I want all 3 of you guys to answer this question. Will Hammond will start one of your last 2 games. I bring this up because he is able to do that and still maintain his red shirt. So will we see Will Hammond start one of the last 2 games? Overreaction or reality? Conrad, you go first.
Overreaction, assuming Barron stays healthy. I think the coaching staff has made it very clear that Barron is your guy, that they've rode with him all year, and he's had an above average year, not a great year. But because of that, assuming he stays healthy, I don't think Will start. I think Will could play, but I don't think Will start one of the last 2 games against Oklahoma State or West Virginia. Zyler, what do you think?
Man, you are playing a really tricky hand here. And we didn't talk much about Barron when it came to the offensive performance. I think if I had to boil down your offensive issues right now, I think you have a QB that doesn't trust his O-line, and you have an offensive coordinator that doesn't trust his quarterback very much, and that's leading to really dysfunctional stuff. Yeah. It is very tough for me to see, if I'm the coach, you can play it both ways. It's like, man, maybe we've seen what Barron can do. Maybe he's hurt. There's the rumors that his shoulder isn't there. If his shoulder's hurt, we're not competing for the Big 12 championship anymore. Get surgery now. Let's get you ready for next season. Let's make sure that you're fully ready to go. The counter, the problem there is that Will Hammond gets to start 2 games, and then maybe you don't ever get to start again. If I'm the coaching staff, I think they're probably having those conversations. I don't know whether they will do it. I bet you see Hammond at some point in the next 2 games, though. if I were a betting man. I think you'll see him.
All right. I like Clayton. Clayton following up on that. Hammond or no?
Man, I don't know if he'll start. I probably agree with Zyler that he will get in the game, but my thinking is you're going into the bye week, you're playing the worst defense on your schedule outside of maybe ACU. I feel like Barron's going to start against OSU. The offense is going to look good. And then at that point, he's not going to get benched in the last game of the year. So I'd probably say overreaction, but I agree with Zyler that they're probably at least considering it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, here's two thoughts I have on this. Oh,
go ahead, Brennan.
Conrad. Yeah, okay. First thought is worst case scenario, you lose to Oklahoma State. Let's just say you go lose to Oklahoma State. Now you have absolutely nothing. Like, let me finish. And you're 6-5. You're not doing anything, and Barron doesn't look great. I think you for sure see Will Hammond against West Virginia. And in my mind, I don't think you'll see him against Oklahoma State off the bye. But if something doesn't go well, or even if Barron performs average and you win, I'll just go offense looks poor. I think you see Will Hammond. The second thing to your point is Barron Morton, to me, what we saw 2 years ago in Stillwater, I have not seen since that first half. I have not seen him against high-level competition. Outside of Cincinnati, this game comes to mind. There hasn't really been a game where Barron has been the reason you won the game. And it just is kind of do we have what is Barron going to get better? And for the coaches to answer this question, Z, to your point, it's if he's not healthy, are you referencing his right shoulder or the left shoulder that he hurt against TCU?
No, his right shoulder, the one that he hurt against West Virginia last year.
So that he still doesn't have the strength that he might have had prior to that injury.
There's rumors. I don't know that that's true or not. I can't vouch for that. There are rumors that
Okay, well, if there's any validity to those rumors, then yeah, shut him down because Will can start and still maintain his red shirt and get him healthy and then have an actual conversation. But the coaching staff might be looking at, what do we do if Will goes and balls out, to your point? And what do we do with Barron? It's a good problem to have because Barron Morton has been the most efficient quarterback you've had in 7 years. So I'm not trying to just say that Barron is not effective, but I don't know if Barron is raising his play to the level that we might have thought he would have. And we haven't really seen him be as mobile as he looked 2 years ago. His arm strength doesn't look as strong. I don't know the exact metrics on his deep balls, but outside of a couple good ones to Douglas this year, they haven't been great. So it's just kind of weird to me. I'm going to say reality, you see Will Hammond against West Virginia.
The thing that the coaching staff has to consider is if Will Hammond starts, Barron is gone next year, Jake Strong is gone next year, who knows what Cameron Brown's doing. That would leave you with redshirt freshman Will Hammond, who you may or may not have a really good player. We all thought Barron was going to be a really, really good player, and I think he's a good player. He's just not a really, really good player. Your quarterback roster is in not dire straits. Obviously you only want to play one quarterback all year, but you would have some work to do as far as constructing a manageable room in case Will Hammond does go down if he's your starter next year. Who wants to come in behind the redshirt freshman? Where's the opportunity for playing time? There's no what are you selling there? It'll just be interesting.
Yeah. Well,
let me say this about the Barron conversation. It's really hard to fairly and equitably evaluate a quarterback when they're playing behind the most horrific offensive line you've seen in Joey's tenure. I don't know how since last year.
I would say this line is worse than last year.
I think this year's worse. Yeah. And so you can make the argument for Will, this and that, but it's a team game at the end of the day. And, to play devil's advocate for Barron, I'm not trusting this offensive line either. If I'm him, I've been hurt multiple times, way more than I wish I ever would have been. This offensive line is absolutely pathetic. Sterling Porcher is probably the worst offensive lineman you may have had in I don't know how many years. I don't know how you fairly evaluate a guy, and I think he's done the best he can with what he has. Obviously, he's not perfect. He's made a lot of mistakes, but you can't act like putting Will Hammond in there is going to solve everything immediately. I think that's extremely naive. Not saying, again, it couldn't happen. I just don't think it's a guarantee. And so to write Barron off, like I know a lot of the fan base is, after what he's playing behind, I don't know that that's the wisest thing to say or to do. That's my whole. Again, I'm not necessarily saying Barron's the best quarterback ever, but I don't think you've necessarily been able to evaluate him fairly.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you write him off. I'm just saying if he's not fully healthy and if you lose a game and you're just playing a 6-5 home game the day after Thanksgiving against West Virginia, and you want to see what you got out of Will for 4 quarters, heck, I'd be down for an all freshman game. If Hudson's healthy, if Dickey and Williams are healthy, if Ponton's healthy, throw them out there. Like the difference between 7-5 and 6-6 is the the Pop-Tarts Bowl or the whatever you played in last year and Louisiana. So like to me, it doesn't matter. Like, see what you got and get some talent out there. It's not right off Barron. It's just kind of get him healthy and let Will go play for 4 quarters.
If I'm Barron though, and Will comes out there and looks anything serviceable, I'm gone. I mean, I'm gone. And then your quarterback room is in terrible situation next year, like Zyler just mentioned.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, but you got to do what's best for your football team and the health of your football team. And if I'm just saying, and this is again, if you get upset on the road against Oklahoma State. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. We'll get into that next week. Okay, next question. Officiating cost you the game against Colorado. We don't have to get into it. We've talked about it a lot. I just want a yes or no. Conrad, I think I know your answer already, but overreaction or reality?
Overreaction. As bad as it was, you still had the opportunity to win the game and you didn't. So overreaction.
Clayton?
Yeah, overreaction. It definitely hurt, but your lack of run game and your 3 turnovers / missed fake punt is what cost you the game.
Z?
Yep, same. Yep.
See, look at that, guys. I'm gracious. I'll give you a hard one. We have to say, then I get you one. You get to answer it all easily. You get it correct. I'm with you. Overreaction as well. Okay, last question. A little more tough. Back to the tough side. Taj Brooks is the best running back in Texas Tech football history. Overreaction or reality? Z?
Man, I don't know. I haven't watched enough Tech football. I think Byron Hansford would still probably be the best back that you've had. I love DeAndre Washington, though. Maybe that's when I was just like really coming into my Tech fandom, but he was such a good pass catcher and runner. Like he really was just kind of a do-it-all back. Taj has been excellent. He's easily, I think, in the top 3. I think you can make a case for him being number 1 overall. And especially given that he's run behind he's never had a great O-line that just creates these monster holes. He has had to do so much on his own. His yards after contact is always excellent. He's getting hit in the backfield all the time. He definitely has a case. I don't think that I would make best running back in Texas Tech history, though, definitively. I think you can make that case reasonably, though.
Clayton?
Yeah, agreed. I would probably have Byron Hansford still. He had a 2,000-yard rushing season, and
that's nuts.
Taj just now broke his record, and he played in 3 seasons. This is Taj's 5th. So I've got to stick with him, but Taj is definitely top 2, top 3. Honestly, his durability, I think, is his best quality. I mean, he's getting the ball like 30 times a game, and he's missed 1 game this year, and I don't think he missed any last year, which is just absurd. So he's for sure, top 3 at worst.
Yeah, totally agree. 2,000-yard season from Byron. I don't know how you can make a case for it, but a 2,000-yard season, man, that's something to marvel at and something that we should not forget, even though I think a lot of fans have, just because a lot of people didn't see it. And so I definitely think you can make the case for Taj being 1, but again, based on what Byron did in 3 seasons versus Taj's 5, I'd probably still lean that way. So I'd say overreaction, but again, I'm not going to be mad if somebody wants to make that case for Taj.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what Taj has meant to the program probably now has been bigger than Byron at the time. I mean, and I wasn't born when Byron played for Texas Tech football, so I can't say this definitively, but like it just seems like Taj has really kind of kept the fan base rejuvenated. Him coming back after last year was a huge deal for us. We got really excited with the offensive talent and what Taj brings to the table. And he's also just a solid dude. Like he represents you well as the best player on your team. And so I'm going to say reality. I think at the end of the day, Taj, as a whole, him being in the program, staying, committing to this in his super senior season, I think breaking the rushing record, he deserves the title best running back in Tech history, though he won't win the Doak Walker award. He'll be nominated, won't win, but nonetheless, kudos to Taj, man. I'm happy for him. It just sucks it came, tough loss at home. So
this is just random. I was looking at, James Gray is probably somebody else that we should mention, but Sir Roderick Thompson is top 10 in all-time Tech rushing history. That's crazy to me. I did not think he was getting yards like that. Good for Sir Roderick.
Yeah, and Sir Roderick, dude, he probably didn't have nearly as good as like team. Like he and Todd were almost the same. Sir Roderick was another bully type dude. To have those guys on the same roster, kind of the same. You just didn't have a change of speed guy. It's almost like both of them kind of got just mushed together and weren't really able to separate themselves as well. But it's been good to see Todd do that. But I love Sir Roderick. And Z, to your point, DeAndre Washington, he played with Pat. He played with Jakeem Grant. He played with some guys that were studs. That dude played in the NFL. He played for the Raiders for a while. He was a stud. Like he was making LSU NFL defenders miss in that Texas Bowl with Pat and him. I mean, that dude was awesome. He was one of my favorite players at Tech too. And he was a short king as well, him and Jakeem. So it's easy to like those guys when you're a short king yourself. So okay, well, let's get to quickly here some news and notes from around the Big 12. Iowa State, like I said, lost to Kansas. This is really tough. I almost wish this didn't happen because had you have won, you would have now owned a tiebreaker over them and actually had a very good path to the Big 12 championship had you won out. So they lose to Kansas. Their hopes for the Big 12 title now are severely diminished. BYU survives a road scare against Utah. Lots to get into about that. We might be hinting at some Tommy Tubervilles here in a second. But BYU stays undefeated, and they are now a heavy favorite to play in the title. And then Arizona State beat UCF. I bring this up because this Arizona State team that was projected to win 3.5, 4.5 games this year is now 7-2. A team that you beat at home is 7-2 this year. And so Arizona State, sneaky, actually might still have a chance to play in the Big 12 title if some things go their way, which would be wild. Imagine a BYU Arizona State title game. Possibility still would be crazy. So Utah's AD, by the way, fined $40,000. We'll get into that here probably now. So Tommy Tubervilles of the week. If you don't know, first time listening, Tommy Tuberville was the ultimate fraud at Texas Tech University. Zyler had a great idea to honor some fraudulence of the week around the sports world, football, basketball. Sometimes it's even some dude that just tweets, and we'll call him out and find him as well. So for Clayton, I'll go to you first. Tommy Tour of the week for you. I believe you're going to be piggybacking off my Utah Utes comment. So without further ado, man, who is your Tommy of the week?
Yeah, you said it. My Tommy Tuberville of the week is the Utah athletic director. After they lost the game, he went on a rant saying, hey, we used to be happy in the Big 12. Now I don't really want to be here because the officials stole this game from us. Which, first off, we all know that's not true. No Utah fan or administrator wants to be in the Big 12. And second off, the blatant holding that was the correct call is not the reason that Utah lost that game. I would probably point to the fact that they had 80 yards of offense in the second half. They had one drive that went longer than 16 yards, and they didn't score a single point. Like, buddy, maybe just have your offense get at least a field goal, and you win that game. And that's not even to mention that it was a holding, like I said. So, Mark Harlan, you are my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
I love that one, man. Nothing like getting fined $40K for a game you just should have won without that penalty. But maybe just some pent up frustration. Utah's 4-5 after being a heavy favorite to win the conference, and maybe he just had to finally let it out. But let it out in a big way. 40K, that's nothing, I guess, for him. Maybe it's a lot. I don't know. I don't know how the Mormons give, up there. It's who knows.
It's not a Mormon school.
It's a Mormon state, dude. We'll fact check it. I bet he's Mormon. So, I'd bet 40K is Mormon. Okay, Z, who is your Tommy Tuberville of the week?
Yeah, I want to preface this by saying Dion has done an excellent job building up this Colorado program that 2 years ago was genuinely one of the worst in the country from an FBS perspective. They were awful. So hats tip to him doing that. You've got to give him his flowers. They've done a remarkable job building this up. That being said, Dion's second half game management was some of the worst that I've ever seen. They burned 2 of their timeouts before I think like 7 minutes had passed in the second half on very trivial yada yada yada. Then where it really gets bad, and I've got to pull up all of the stuff to make sure that I quote it appropriately. They had so many chances to put this game away and still somehow gave you a chance to go tie the ball game up at the end. Unbelievable sequence of events for this to even get close. So they go up 31-20. They score a touchdown. We turn it over on downs, 8 plays, 15 yards, blah, 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 that whatever. They get the ball back up 31-20. They go -5 yards and punt. Then they immediately get an interception. So they have the ball on our 39-yard line. They then go Shedeur Sanders, pass complete for 16 yards for a first down, a 4-yard run, incomplete pass, complete pass to the 15, field goal. Okay, so now still a 2-possession game. One of those things, like we said in TCU, like 2-possession, kicking a field goal to make a 2-possession game a 2-possession game is not necessarily great. Not necessarily something that you want to see from your team. We then get the ball back and immediately fumble. They get the ball on the Texas Tech 28. Somehow Colorado, with the ball on the Texas Tech 31, ends up having to punt it. They pass for Travis Hunter for 1 yard. Then he gets sacked for 8 yards back to the 38. They take a delay of game and then have to punt it from the 43. So it's still a 2-possession game. We drive all the way down the field, turn it over on downs, still a 2-possession game. They get 6 yards and immediately punt it. We then go down, score a touchdown. Then they have to punt because they take all these delay of games, and then they still somehow win. Just bad game management from Dion. Wasn't able to put the game away. They should have been a 3-4 score win, if I'm being honest. Just not very good on his end. It's going to bite them at some point. Them throwing it up to Travis Hunter in the end zone when they really just needed a couple yards to kick a field goal to make it 17 points. I was like, man, what are we doing here? Very, very poor. I'd be frustrated if I was a Colorado fan. So Dion's second half end of game management, you're my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
That's a good one, man.
Like
it
you
almost
said-
felt like they were. Oh, go ahead, Clay. Sorry.
The play where they, on first down, where they threw a jump ball in the end zone that easily could be picked.
That could be picked off.
Yeah.
You
One
need
of
to
the
burn
worst
clock.
decisions I've ever seen.
And then Shedeur doing his little deal where he gets sacked for so many yards to put them out of field goal range was unbelievable. It didn't end up biting them. They ended up winning by 2 scores, but against a better, more competent team, that kind of stuff will come back and bite you. They need to clean that stuff up if they want to go far. So
Yeah, I was gonna say it. I think Z, you had texted like Dion's trying to give you this game. It did kind of feel like that. That's why I was shocked. Like the fact that you even got the ball back with a chance to go tie the game with 50
there's
seconds left.
no reason.
You should
no reason.
not have been in that position. Yeah, it was interesting.
None.
Okay, Conrad, I got a feeling where yours is going, but who's your Tommy Tuberville of the week?
Yeah, as our listeners know by this point, if you made it this far in the show, I have been alluding to this time after time after time. My Tommy Tuberville of the week is the Big 12 officiating crew that was in Lubbock, Texas on Saturday afternoon that called the game. I tried multiple times today to find the names of these individuals to publicly shame them for the whole world to see, but I couldn't find their names. Big 12, good job covering them up so that these guys wouldn't get embarrassed by the Broadway Shuffle. But the lack of quality officiating that we saw in that game, as mentioned by unbiased individuals on Twitter, Dean Blandito on Fox, the other commentators on Fox as well, and 60,000 intelligent Red Raiders at Jones AT&T Stadium on Saturday. We all agree the Big 12 officiating crew that was in Lubbock was not the best, was actually pretty poor, and played a big impact on this game. So Big 12 officials in Lubbock, if you'd like to defend yourself, the comments are open for you. You are my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I like it, deserving, but easy. Yeah.
Someone had
That
to
was
do
a
it.
that was a
Someone-
that was my drive. That was my drive, Brennan, on 13 at the Rawls on Friday morning. That was a bomb right down the middle. 40, 50, 60 yards past you.
Oh, wow. Okay. You made birdie on that hole, actually. I think.
did
So,
make
good
birdie.
job.
That's why I brought that up.
Well, I hate to do this, but I just like someone had to do it, Clayton, to your point on Big 12 officials. I think we would be remiss not to call out our own fan base, and the Texas Tech student section did not necessarily help your cause in this game, in my opinion, when you are delaying the game and causing your own coach to have to get on a microphone to tell you to stop on a national TV audience, probably the most watched game you've probably had all year. It's just a little embarrassing for your program, for your school. As great as the energy was, you just do not love to see that. I'm not trying to speak from a high horse here and feel like, we are, if I wasn't sitting in row 51, would I be tempted potentially? I didn't want to hit someone 3 rows in front of me though with a tortilla or water bottle. But it just is embarrassing, and it just doesn't look good. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that the Texas Tech student section, in section 21 and 22 specifically, is my Tommy Tuberville of the week. I know that none of you are listening an hour into the show, so you will not even know that you are being called out, but I'm going to call you out and hold you accountable. Be better. Strive for honor. I sound like such a boomer right now, but going to say that, and we are just going to leave it at that. So hopefully I will never have to call you out again outside of being awesome and doing it the right way. So man, that was hard even for me to do. Usually I'm the most like anti rule follower when it comes to that stuff, but there you go. So Z, end the show, man, with some trivia. I don't know if it's positive. I don't know what you got for us this week, but let's see where you're going with Tech trivia as we close the show.
Yeah, and a special little note for anybody that's made it this far. We have a special guest joining us for a Thursday episode. It is a former Texas Tech basketball player, somebody that I think you'll all be pretty excited to hear from. I won't, I guess, necessarily spoil it, but he is going to be coming on the show, and we're really excited to do that. That being said, Tech trivia, Taj broke the Texas Tech career rushing record, and he cemented himself as let me pull it up here. I believe he is 5th all-time Big 12 rushing yards. He's behind some really, really good players, the likes of Ricky Williams, Darren Sproles, and Brad Smith. But there was a player who played 4 years and had 5,540 yards. Do you know who this player is that leads the Big 12 in total rushing yards?
All time.
All time.
Dude, is it? Oh, go ahead. Give me the hint. Give me the hint. I love the hint.
I think you can nail it. I think you can snipe it.
It's not DeMarco Murray, is it?
I can lock that in as your guest if you would like.
I'm gonna lock. For some reason, I'm probably so wrong, but I remember him just going bonkers.
This hurts me to say. This hurts because he went to Texas. Is it Ricky Williams?
That's a good guess. He's in the top 10.
Were the other?
I'm not going to reveal him. Okay. Yeah, Darren Sproles is one of them, but I think you'll get him if I read him off again.
Is it Adrian Peterson?
That is another really good guess.
It is
not any of those people. Adrian Peterson is 9th. He only played 3 seasons, obviously. It is actually Cedric Benson from the University of Texas, 2001 to 2004. Some really interesting players here. Breece Hall is 11th, and he only played 3 seasons, almost had 4,000 yards. Devin Neal for Kansas in his 4 seasons has already 3,900 yards. He's got a chance to... he could break the record if he comes back for another season. And then Samaje Perine, oddly enough, is 8th, and he only played 3 seasons. He had 4,000 yards for OU. I did not think he was running it like that.
Well, he had 601 games.
Yeah,
I don't remember who they
Texas
played.
The Perine was the main back on that team.
Yeah,
I just threw out. I don't even. DeMarco Murray probably wasn't even remotely close. I just want to throw out some random dude from Oklahoma.
He's 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, he was so good.
Ricky Williams for Tech, oddly enough, is also top 15.
Wow.
Some really good players.
Good question, man. Zeke came out hot tonight. I love it, dude. Great question. Well, as we look ahead to next week, we have a special guest, as Z mentioned, for Thursday's show, and it will be an interesting episode. I can promise you that I don't know how it will go. I just know it will be fun. It'll be entertaining, and it is a former player of a sport, and that's all I'll say. But he'll be on the show Thursday. It'll be a lot of fun. You'll look forward to hearing from him. And then basketball is at home Wednesday against Wyoming. They are coming off a 2-0 start to the season. Team looks good, and we are very excited about this team. So as we segue away from football here in the next month, we have a ton to get into. We will have a lot of fun with basketball season. So look forward to that game at home against Wyoming on Wednesday, and we'll dissect that a little bit on Thursday's show as well. And then a bye week, thankfully, for Texas Tech football. So we'll be taking a week off from that. We'll look forward to a preview episode a week and a half from now on Thursday for Oklahoma State. But until then, everyone stay safe. Stop throwing water bottles. Heck, even just stop throwing tortillas for a bit, maybe. Enjoy some basketball. Reset, and we'll see you guys on Thursday. So for Zyler, Clayton, and Conrad, I'm Brennan. Recom Tech, strive for honor, and we will see y'all Thursday morning. Thanks, boys.